Today is Wednesday, February 4th, and as I always say, it's a beautiful day to have a webinar. I'm John Harrington, CEO of the Performance Marketing Institute, a 501c6 not-for-profit trade association dedicated to protecting, promoting, and advancing the direct-to-consumer and performance-driven marketing industry. On behalf of the entire PDMI family, it's my pleasure to welcome you back for yet another fun-filled and exciting episode of the PDMI Take 20. As a reminder, the PDMI Take 20 is a quick-hitting roundtable discussion led by industry experts on trending topics, all in roughly 20 minutes. Today, we're joined by three amazing industry friends, including Racine Levy of Care.com, Sean Robertson of NBCUniversal, and Matt Laramee of Southern New Hampshire University. And together, we'll be taking a look at how small to medium businesses, otherwise known as SMBs, are finding success in TV and CTV space. However, before we get started, please allow me to do a little housekeeping. If you'd like to ask a question, and we encourage you to do so, please use the questions tab located in your control panel. Please also know that you're welcome to ask questions throughout today's conversation, but we will hold all answers to the end of our discussion. Alrighty, folks, with that said, it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator. He doesn't follow best practices, they follow him. He's the fearless Chris Foster. Chris is Vice President of New Business at Modern Postcard, a marketing agency located in Carlsbad, California. In addition to his day job, Chris is the chairperson of the Brand Response Council and the host of the podcast Men Folk Journey. Alrighty, Chris, thank you for being here today, and thank you so much for the 132nd time, because today is the 132nd episode. Take it away, my friend. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Johnny. What a fantastic introduction, as always, and what a fantastic panel. Really excited to have these masters of the crafts on board on this, and we're going to dive right in. So, look, small to medium-sized brands are looking to scale, right? Digital can only take them so much. Social media advertising can only take them so much, and there are these black box algorithms that they don't understand, and also they can't quite get the audience that they might want. So television is a natural next step for small businesses, but in the past, traditional linear television just might have been out of reach from a budget perspective. And so transitioning into television now seems to be possible with the expansion of CTV media. It's a way in which they can get their message out to consumers in a way that they couldn't before. And one of the promises of CTV is the democratization of that screen-based channel, right? So enabling these smaller businesses to participate. Because in the past, most TV was out of reach, but now it's possible to these brands to expand beyond digital and social to play in the biggest screen in the house. I'm gonna set the table with a couple of stats before we get started. SMB adoption of CTV has grown 45% year over year, indicating small and mid-sized companies are increasingly choosing CTV over, or at least alongside, with their digital channels. 62%, almost 2/3 of SMBs running CTV in 2025 were first-time TV advertisers. What does this mean? It means that they're taking that leap into television and they're doing it through CTV. Typical CPMs range between $15 to $35, $25 being a common benchmark. It's affordable, it's manageable, and you can deploy with some smaller budgets for SMBs to actually get into the play. So, and some of the distractions I might have is because we do have a new kitten, and the kitten thinks that I am a tree climbing apparatus. So if we get Professor Plum into the broadcast, well, that's just for everybody's delight and joy. So with those ideas in mind, we're going to dive in. Let's just start by asking you to tell us about your role and your business. Racine, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. So nice to not see everyone behind the screen, but see everyone on the screen. And thanks so much for joining. Happy Hump Day. I'm Racine Levy. I lead performance and brand media across TV, CTV, paid social, influencer, podcasts at Care.com. Formerly, I led brand media at Angie, formerly as Angie's List, bringing all the media buying and strategy in-house. In terms of care, we really are about making connections and connecting those prized possessions to trusted individuals who can care for those. So connecting parents to nannies, a senior to a senior care healthcare professional or a social worker, a house to a housekeeper, and a pet to pet care. So Chris, if you need someone to sit for your kitten one day, use care.com. Yeah, why not? I'll send you a But so happy to be here and talk all things CTV and performance marketing.
Fantastic. Thanks, Racine. Sean?
Hey, great to see everybody. Thanks, Chris. Great to see Racine and Matt, two trusted partners of ours here at NBCUniversal, and also two friends who I've known a long time. And Chris, great serving alongside you on the Brand Response Council. So thanks for hosting this today. You're old hat, but you're always fresh and new for these men. So happy to be here. Sean Robertson, I'm one of 4 vice presidents for the SMBG group at NBCUniversal. We love our acronyms here. SMBG for us, small, medium business, but the key focus is the G stands for growth. And it's a new perspective that NBC's taken in the marketplace. For far too long, we had this very marquee brand with tier 1 content that was not accessible to challenger brands, to brands that were trying to scale and enter the marketplace, right? And we had this dichotomy of tier 1 grade A content, but it was inaccessible because there were higher barriers to entry with budget minimums, with the way that you might execute, or just even your creative. So what we've really done here is to work with all of our stakeholders internally, from marketing to finance to legal to operations, to make sure that we become an easier entry point for brands of all sizes, but also that we remove the friction. And that's a lot of what we'll be talking about later today. So we've done this now for 3 years. The precursor to this group was something called Direct to Scale, which really looked at direct consumer brands, but we've morphed and evolved with the needs of the marketplace. And we think we're industry leaders in this side of the market. So happy to be here today and share.
Awesome.
Great, wonderful to be here, everyone. What a great group of thought leaders here within our industry. I'm Matt Laramee. I'm with Southern New Hampshire University. I'm a senior media director. Excuse me. With that, I help lead our team around all of our strategy through linear television, CTV, out of home, as well as the audio components of our campaign, primarily with podcasting. And I've been with SMHU for the last 7 years, and it's been extremely rewarding working for the university, because we're bringing education to those who may have never thought that was possible for them, helping those that are first generation learners complete their degree, and really taking those experiences and just being positive stewards in the marketplace to bring education to folks and help them reach their goals and their dreams. Again, things that they may have never thought possible, we're helping bring it to them, and while all at the same time doing it at their own pace and doing it at an affordable level. So just a great mission here at Southern New Hampshire University, and wonderful topic today on CTV and how we can reach those that are looking for education.
Wonderful. That's a great introduction. And Sean, I'd like to start with you about something you just talked about, where you said that one of the goals with your operations and the mission is to remove or reduce friction. Now with SMBs, I don't want to say they're less sophisticated marketers. It doesn't seem to be like a fair word to use, but they aren't necessarily as practiced or as seasoned in high scale media purchases, right? And so with that, there has to be an easier way for them to gain entrance into CTV. So tell us about how NBC is removing that friction to make it easier, not just from a budget standpoint, but really from an execution standpoint.
Yeah, so, and great question. We look at it, where are the complexities in the buying process and how do we remove those? So some of the things I mentioned, thresholds to get onto the platform. And, I won't bury the lead here. One of the ways that we've done that is bringing platforms that are homegrown, built behind our walls, Universal Ads, which is Comcast owned. And that's a platform where advertisers can, for as little as, $1,000, start to test the waters on what CTV can do for them at scale, right? And we really start with KPIs. What are your budgets? What are your goals? Who are you trying to reach? How do you measure success? All those things that we've been doing for years in direct response television. When a brand is in a growth scale, we need to understand how are you trying to accomplish your goals. And for so many of these brands, to your point, Chris, it's not that they're less sophisticated. They've been doing this and scaling with a lot of the direct consumer platforms, whether search or social. And how do we take premium video content on platforms like Peacock or all of our other digital endpoints? You think about the 14 different linear assets that we have, from NBC broadcast to Telemundo to all our suite of cable networks. Well, we have digital distribution for that, right? If you're looking at vMVPDs, if you're looking at our owned and operated platforms, aggregating that, and with this massive ad-supported scale, making that accessible for brands of all sizes. So we've lowered some of those thresholds. We have very easy, clear pricing modules for them. And that's really what SMBG was built for at NBCUniversal. We have no other remit than to look for those brands, direct response, or search and social first brands, and how do we help onboard them and help them scale using our premium content.
That's fantastic. I love it. That's a great mission. So Racine, you're responsible for all things performance as it relates to care. Clearly CTV is going to be one of those channels. What is the one thing you love about using CTV?
Yeah, so we work with an agency, and over the last year, we've really shifted our entire video strategy more CTV. It's really shifted as being more treated as a digital TV to being treated as a true channel. And today it really represents more than half of our video investment. So historically, we really worked on those traditional tried and true DR linear cable stations, which still work for us, more for reach and frequency and conversion. But this year, especially during the rebrand, we went through a rebrand in June, really changed our logo, our vision, our creative, more than just like that, just our whole mission statement as well. We really wanted to educate people on care and remind people what we're here for. So we chose a more efficient reach strategy, and with that strategy leaning more on CTV. With 50% of our spend on partners like YouTube, NBC, Disney, and Amazon. So that really allowed us to not only reach our core seeker audience, like the seniors for senior care, but also those go-getters, people like us who are largely millennial, they're cord cutter audiences, and they all over-index on video consumption, but specifically CTV consumption. So although I truly am an old school TV buyer, I truly do believe in the power of cable and broadcast television, primarily planning that for reach and frequency. CTV has been very meaningful for us, and we were able to use it to plan against audiences, like our business objectives, and really track it back to conversions and incrementality. So that's really been like the biggest change for us here at CARE, and also when I did the rebrand at Angie, same kind of idea, targeting more of those millennials who are consuming television on their connected television channels through streaming devices.
That's fantastic. So it's 50% now. What was it before? Can you give us the kind of scale of shift you had?
5%, I think at the time. I've been here about a year, and that was really like twofolded, working really directly with our agency Horizon, and understanding their POV on it. Historically, I've seen TV actually perform a little bit better than CTV when I was working at my former job, but here I'm seeing with our brand specifically over the past year, I think that really has to do with consumption and the way we're viewing TV. We're seeing response rates and incremental cost per views just as more efficient than TV, which allows us to believe that CTV is hopefully driving those conversions we need for people to become care.com basic members, which is a free membership, or premiums where they can pay $40 a month and use our service.
That's fantastic. I love it. I want to get back to some of your decision making on that, but I'd like to pivot to Matt. Matt, I know that Southern New Hampshire University has been doing CTV. In fact, I remember seeing one. I was watching something on Tubi, I believe, or it was, but anyway, I saw the ad and I was like, I know the guy who's putting that ad together. So that was pretty cool. So how long have you guys been doing CTV, and what's the lean in on that from the organization?
Sure, Chris. So we've been in CTV since 2020, and when we first came in-house back in 2019, we were 100% linear budgets, and we slowly started to lean into CTV starting in 2020. And it was a gradual shift where we didn't just move all of our budgets at once. We began proving out the efficacy of each one of the publishers through measurement and refined testing. And now in our current state, we're at a 70-30 split of CTV to linear, really leaning into the space. And it's boiled down to a lot of the partners that we've worked with in linear. We've developed wonderful relationships, and we're able to correlate that into the CTV space. And as we moved into CTV, we also identified what properties work best for us within linear, and use that knowledge to be able to say, all right, these are the publishers and platforms that we should test out first, see if we can mirror the success that we saw in linear. And it's been extremely successful for us, hence why we're at 70% now. And we're on about 14 different premier publisher properties now that we buy completely direct. We avoid DSPs at this time. Again, that relationship level, and also we are able to really communicate with our partners our needs and goals and refine the CPMs and the content plans that we have put together over the past few years.
That's fantastic. And what I would think is that the opportunity for learning and optimization is a little bit more hands-on with CTV because you can learn so quickly and make refinements. Have you found that to be true?
Absolutely. And one of the things that we've identified are the measurement partners, and they're so important to us. But it goes beyond that. We also have internal measurement with our QR codes on screen. We do leverage iSpot for their incremental conversions and just driving down through the funnel where we can see users actually engaging with the SMHU website, what publisher initially drove them. But then further down the funnel, we're able to see conversions at our thank you page after a lead form has been submitted.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. So Sean, I guess I'll go back to you if you don't mind. When the stat that I had shared at the beginning of the show showed that almost 2/3 of these SMBs were doing CTV for the very first time. When you're talking to clients or agencies or partners, when someone's kind of testing it for their very first time, what are some common questions that they have before they launch their first CTV campaign?
Yeah, there are a couple of common questions that we get, and I'll go in, I think, order of importance. First question is always going to be, how much do I need to spend? As I mentioned previously, we've really brought down that threshold. Now, we're going to tie that to your desired outcomes. So we come with recommendations, and the good thing is we have a portfolio and a history where we can look at a brand's goals, their market size, their geo-targeting, and really help frame out a recommended budget. But the good thing is we're designed to test and scale with our advertisers. The next thing is, how do I measure performance? And look, we're on the hook. We're a performance-based organization from day one, especially coming from a direct response. That's not a new metric that I've been on the hook for. So we're really ROI driven. So whether folks are trying to understand brand lift or return on ad spend or cross-channel impact, we want to make sure that we're offering full funnel attribution and constantly, whether we're developing those solutions in-house or working with third-party partners like Java. Right? We're trying to understand, how are you measuring your search and social impact? What do you have in-house? Bring your own data, because we work with so many different data vendors, and we have a team that's built around that. And then the next thing is, do I need TV ready creative? And I think this is one of the things that we heard quite often is, do I need specific CTV creative? Oftentimes, if you're ready on television and you're looking to scale onto CTV, as Matt mentioned, when he came in 2019, that CTV budget was zero. So they already had high quality content. Maybe you're cutting down a 120 to a 60 to make it more palatable. If you're searching social only, how do we help take that vertical video and scale that to CTV? And we found ways to do that, not just on our other endpoints, but on Peacock, right, the big mothership. The next thing is really, do I need, or how easy is it to launch, right? What do I need inside my walls to help launch? And so we're, like I said, activation agnostic. We're platform agnostic. If you have a platform, if you're already integrated into the trade desk and you're finding that you're executing the rest of your campaigns there, cool, let's do that. So we want to find the easiest way to get you up and running, but also make sure that you have all the back end measurement that's necessary, so that as we're looking to optimize, we're looking to measure post-campaign effectiveness, then we're prepared to help you scale in the long term.
That's fantastic. Those are excellent 4 common questions, and we'll want to put those up to the show.
Question that I like to ask you when I negotiate my plans directly with you, is that the lowest CPM?
There's that. So we right-size the pricing, right? And that's, again, we want to make sure that we're not over-promising and under-delivering. So, if you say, listen, at a P2 Plus, this is where you're starting great, and then it's all of the same negotiating that goes into a linear campaign. But we've really, and I think you can attest, Racine, and you, Matt, based on what we hear from our partners, as you test and learn, and we're setting goals together, we're going to right-size that pricing, right? But to get folks onto the platform, we think proving the efficacy and the effectiveness of CTV, the scale is there. It's just one of the biggest challenges folks have is reconciling when you're coming from linear TV, especially. You get that one spot time. If you're airing at 8:05 p.m., you're in a primetime block, and you're getting that mass reach, 750,000, 1 million households. right? You can track that and then go to your web attribution and say, well, okay, I ran that spot. Here's been the web spike. Great, I can attribute that. But when you're delivering these disparate millions of impressions from a campaign throughout a 7-day, 24-hour time period, the question, if you're Matt, how do I track that? How do I make sure that that form fill that happened on my website came from my Peacock audience extension campaign? So we've had to develop attribution models. And again, it's test and learn. What are you finding that's work behind your walls? And transparency on both sides, both on the buyer and the sales side, is really what's helped us to scale this side of the business.
Yeah, and the learning is something I want to dive into, Racine, with you. And I'm sure you, sometimes you probably put away your baseball bats before you talk to NBC about your CPMs, but maybe not. I'll leave that to you guys. But with the learning that Sean just mentioned, Racine, what have you learned most in terms of some of the effectiveness and some of the adjustments that you've made with your programs?
Yeah, I think there's two really key learnings I've learned across both Angie and Care that I could speak to, and it goes back to the creative question. If you are ready with the TV creative, then you are ready to launch CTV the next day. But creative really does matter more than almost anything. Like that's just kind of what comes first, the chicken or the egg, the creative or the media. It really does matter in terms of branding and performance. And really found that out through Care, through our rebrand. So this year we launched 2 new creatives across 2 lines of business, senior care and child care. And one of our biggest learnings was that the strongest performing ads, meaning the strongest response rates, incremental CPVs, and actually people who converted long-term to our premiums were not our traditional DR ads with the call to action and taking us through the app. It was actually truly the more emotionally driven ad. So
storytelling.
Yeah, so that was something that was really interesting. I really do believe in a true DR testimonial spot. Before the messaging that we wanted, especially during a rebrand, it was for childcare, that messaging around being calm and confident, returning back to work after a maternity leave and leaving your child at home with their new caretaker. And for senior, the relief of knowing your aging parent is with a trusted professional. So emotional clarity sometimes beats that hard selling, very clear call to action, obviously depending on your brand, like very different than Matt's brand and his strategy. Although that is very emotional as well. And I'm sure they have different creatives there. And then secondly, which I like to really stress to management when I'm getting asked if we should just pull our TV dollars after one day of looking at performance. That's not how you're supposed to measure TV. And I just wrote this to my CMO in a Slack that we need time. It takes time. And tests take time. So we check performance daily, and that's a great directional read, but especially with a new channel like CTV, it often takes more than a day, a week, a month. Sometimes it takes 2 months to really bake in and understand that true impact. And that's why measurement partners like an iSpot, a Video Amp, our agency has their own proprietary measurement, MMMs, even in How Did You Hear About Us surveys are so important to look at the different survey and the different metrics, because it takes time to really tell that story and to understand exactly how each channel is performing and how everything holistically performs together. And I would say if you're testing something, not to take it off air or cancel after a week, probably not after a month. Like, you truly do need time. Again, budgets are limited and you do have a limited flight here. We're only in flight 5 months of the year, which makes my job a little bit harder to really stress that time. I understand, but you really need to understand how the performance was over that quarter, over that year. And, because you're going to see that CTV could be a little bit more expensive than TV, but it takes time to get those beneficial performance metrics.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the one thing about CTV that I find so just academically interesting is that it has a hand in digital and a hand in linear. The linear storytelling, the video, the compelling messages, the emotional draw. But from a digital side, it looks and feels a lot like SEO or PPC or some other programs that take long time, right? You don't start a PPC program and then a week later turn it off. It has to actually run its course in terms of the algorithm to optimize, and you see it over X number of months. So I think that it's a really interesting hybrid blend of trying to take, the strengths of each channel per se and kind of blend this in. That's a great set of learnings. So I guess what I'd like to do is this one kind of lean into the newbies, right? Someone just getting started. So Matt, if you're at a mixer event and someone's come up to you and said, "Hey, I saw your ads on Peacock, and I'm trying to do some CTV, but before I do, what should I know or be careful about? What would you reply to that marketing manager trying CTV for the first time?
I think there's two main points, and then I'll also echo Racine on something as well. So first, have measurement in place, because it's so critical to be able to actually understand which properties are performing, whether it be siloed in the property, also cross-created, where I will echo Racine. That is so critical to have strong creative in place, and really driving authenticity within the creative, especially as you look at the audiences now, and identifying your audiences to really align that creative with them. Unlike linear, you're not reaching that broad audience anymore. You can really hone in and dive into the specific demographics that you're looking to target, those customers that are most important to your business. So identifying those customers, aligning your creative, and then also having that measurement plan in place, which again, as Racine said, give it time to play out, because you have to develop that reach and frequency across the medium. And if you are working publisher direct, be sure to set those goals as well. What frequency are you looking to cap at daily? What makes sense to actually drive response to your brand? Because there are diminishing returns at a certain point. So you don't need to serve to a single household 20 times in a given period. You can refine that, hone it down to a lower frequency. Then at that point, it expands your reach further, because you're not driving to the same users throughout your campaign.
Yeah, if I could add to that, one other key point, I thought you were going to start with this, Matt. Content and creativity still matters, right? So we really drive the point. We have tier 1, grade A premium content. We're launching the Olympics this week. There's one Olympics, right? When people say this is a Super Bowl of, this is the Olympics of, well, there's one Olympics. And you heard me say it on stage at PDMI West last year. There's one Olympics and we have it. Where you're airing still matters. And the transparency to see where your ads are airing, that it's brand safe, premium content still matters. So, and if that's not important to you as a marketer, that's fine. But then the pricing should reflect that, right? So to air in premium content like news, sports, entertainment, and an impression is not just an impression. That really needs to be driven home. So one of the things that both of the marketers on this call, when I've had the conversation, is, can I understand where my spot is airing, where my impressions are being delivered? And that's something that we really pride ourselves on here.
And Sean, you're so right. That is so critical. In fact, the reason we focus on the premium publishers is we know we're not going to run into user-generated content. Of course, we will see that in some cases on YouTube, but outside of that space, it's all curated and refined. And even if it's something that may not seem brand safe, in CTV, you have to remind yourself that the user is engaging directly with the content. They're not channel surfing, coming across it. They're actually raising their hand and selecting that programming. So it's so critical. And Sean, love the Olympics plug. You'll see us there on linear and in the streaming side. So it's very exciting the next 2 weeks ahead.
That's fantastic. I love that answer. And I guess, Racine, will follow up with you, and this will be the last question because we're already at 11:30. What are you most excited about with CTV for next year? Although you've moved up to 50%, Matt's already at 70%. Are you looking at this channel as kind of one of your, although there isn't a single silver bullet, there's a million golden BBs, I get it, but is this a particularly large golden BB that you're really excited about leveraging?
Yeah, just, through the evolution just of the last 5 years and like post-COVID, and you see it in like all the Nielsen reports. Just, I'm really excited about how low friction CTV has become. It's really easy to turn on a test. You can now test in the DR landscape with, lower minimums, not as high premiums, fast creative production. And you can even do self-serve access. Matt, we do direct IOs as well. I do not use anything programmatically because I do like to know direct. I like to be a little bit in more control of the pricing and the inventory. But like 10 years ago, this was, a really dark hole. People were really nervous to test into. And today it's just really a growth experiment and it's exciting. I think there still needs to be some evolution on the transparency and the reporting, which I think sometimes there's some vendors that it could actually continue to be a black hole if you don't have the right people managing the buy. I think we all know maybe who that may be, but it may still be a must buy for a reach perspective. So I think us as marketers, it's really important to continue to push the publishers and make those relationships to get, of course, the best pricing for your brand, but also what makes the most sense for programming and inventory wise as well.
You know, Racine, you touch on a really interesting idea, and you got me thinking about this. When brand marketers use Google or Facebook, there's very little influence they can have on the Google and Facebook algorithm, right? The brand's like, oh, I don't understand this. Hey, Facebook, do you think you could be more transparent with your audience? Facebook is like, no, fam, we won't, but we're just going to do our thing. But it seems to me that in this environment, because you're dealing directly with the publishers, and you know the people who are the publishers, you're dealing with actual people that you know within the industry, that there could be a place with CTV where the entire industry is able to evolve the platform together. You're learning what brands need learning what publishers can do. You're pushing your entertainment.
I think the crowd agrees. I think that's really true. And like just in terms of transparency and the reporting, it's on the client and the agency side to go back to your publishers and tell them what's working, what's not working if you can't give those metrics, but letting them know, like, I'm very honest, and that's kind of like, this is who we're buying and they are actually performing and their CPM is comparable to you. Like what can you do to make this buy perform? If not, it's gonna have to be canceled kind of thing after time. But I think that's really important, just as much as like the transparency and where your buy is running, like how it's performing. And that's on us to make sure they're having those, you know, online and offline conversations.
Yeah, because you're pushing the technology on the platforms, right? And those platform folks are going back to their product development team and saying, hey, my people are asking for X, Y, and Z so that we can make this more palatable for them in terms of measurement or attribution or the like. That is fantastic. And that's an exciting ecosystem that's only going to get better, I think, over time. We are already at 11:32. Like John said, this would go in a heartbeat. So Johnny, do we have questions from the audience?
Do we have questions? Wow, we have a very active audience. So folks, I think we're not going to have to take 20 today. We're going to have to take 40, which is free PDMI today for everyone. I love it. Let's start with a question that's for the group. Kind of a first timer question. What's the most common mistake first time CTV advertisers make? And how can SMBs avoid making these mistakes?
I think what I kind of talked about is not giving it time. I'll just continue. I think that's really important. Like when I started at MG, it was the same thing. We did a new strategy. We were investing our entire budget into DRTV, and we shifted to 10% CT. That grew to 26%. Then it was like 40% because we tested it correctly and gave it time to show its value. I know that's hard when you're faced against your CMO and CEOs asking why your budgets aren't delivering, but you just really have to prove it out or have your agencies work with you hand in hand to understand like the importance of it in your video mix.
I'll add two different things that I've seen specifically for DR advertisers going into CTV. The first is you're going to need at least 2 creatives to get on air. It's a requirement we have. It's making sure that creative meets the specs, but also when we have options about the creative and how we're flagging those out. The second thing is you have brands and with understandable reasons, but if you're talking about healthcare or insurance or pharma that have only 90 and 120 creative, and really you want to be with that 30 or 60 moving into CTV. One, just because of how we manage the inventory, but two, it is a very different experience. Like we say, it is television, yes, and it is digital, but the sweet spot for the creative length in CTV, it sits between 30 and 60. So cutting down that spot, and again, we have internal and external resources that we can direct some of our advertisers to, but it's understanding you're not going to get that same 120 unless you're going to be willing to digest a pretty large CPM. And then even then, then you're really siloing yourself to portions of our footprint and not the full platform. For example, you wouldn't then be able to be on Peacock.
I would say as well, have a good measurement framework and understand that there's multiple signals that can occur across your brand that are indicating performance. And it's not just solely driving to a website. It's overall search intent as well as QR code response, if you can layer that in, if you have those partnerships, and really drilling into that data and testing multiple partners at once. Don't just put all of your eggs in one basket.
Thank you all. Really intelligent, great wisdom that you shared. That's much appreciated. This particular question was directed towards Racine and Matt, but Sean, feel free to answer it as well. Which platforms at the highest end in terms of CPMs do you feel are doing the best at hitting your target demo?
The highest end of CPMs hitting target demo. So with anything, we are always in CTV targeting our demo. But as far as those that are a bit on the higher end, we've seen really good success with Netflix as well as Amazon Prime, those skewing again to the higher end of CPMs.
We've seen really good success. I wouldn't say the CPMs are that high, but just in terms of performance, NBC News has continued to be a great performer for us. Not to say because Sean is on the call, but when I tested it back on Angie, it really did perform, and that was a higher end CPM. We don't buy Netflix or Amazon Prime because of the pricing, but it's really great to hear that you found success there. So Matt, I'd love to pick your brain on that one day. And I didn't know iSpot measured Netflix or Amazon Prime. So that's a new development since I was an iSpot client. So awesome. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
So one question we all learned something from. Fantastic. I love it. This particular question is probably best suited for Sean, but Racine and Matt, feel free to answer. How much do you think budget-wise is appropriate to test a campaign?
Again, I'll go to outcomes. What are you looking to accomplish? It's like asking, how should I dress? Well, it depends on where you're going, right? So we have enough of a history behind our walls that we can make recommendations on how you onboard into a platform, test and scale. But that without having appropriate context, I don't think we could do that question justice and give a framework, right? But again, we're not going to overpromise and underdeliver, and the inverse is true too, right? So we want to make sure that we're going to right size this based on what the desired outcome is, the length of campaign, the creative, the content, the price point for what you're offering, right? If you're looking at education, for example, that's not a low investment level, right? So we're going to make recommendations about who is Matt trying to reach, what life stage are they in. He has been very prescriptive about who SNHU is looking to reach, and they have the perfect examples, right? They have those case studies, and then we'll take that model, what you're trying to accomplish based on your flighting, your goals, and then make some recommendations and build a model plan.
Great insight. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. Let's just do one more question. This one is a little bit Racine and Matt, which is weird because a lot of times we get group questions, but today they were like individually picking the speakers, which is kind of cool. And they were very well tailored questions. So Racine and Matt, from a performance perspective, do you ever lean into the tentpole or sporting events?
So we have started to more recently. So within this current fiscal year that kicked off in July, we leaned more into sports, identifying areas that make most sense for us. But we're also doing some interesting things from the sports side and linear, where we understand we're placing within a certain event, but it can be difficult to really generate frequency around that. We get this mass reach. We're now in a testing period using the OEM partners such as Samsung and Roku to utilize their ACR data to target those viewers who have seen our ad in linear and then re-message to them through CTV and develop frequency around that. And it's actually a tactic that we're doing our first lift with for the Olympics.
Yeah, and just on my end, I think if you can add sports to your buy, even efficient, ROS, ESPN, NBC Sports, Golf Channel, if it makes sense for your demo, it definitely should be on the buy. That's how people are mostly consuming TV live, is through sports. Previously, I bought opportunistic sports at Angie. We bought, I think, a really efficient football spot. We saw our awareness points in that month go up by 5 points. I mean, that's just the power of sports. And here we buy really efficient. We bought some ice skating units on NBC, which actually performed well from a reach perspective, but also from a performance perspective as well, which was new to the buy this year. So definitely a very important part of our buy if the budget permits. But definitely do recommend sports, and there's definitely efficient ways to buy into the sports genre.
It's also a great hack for that day parting in that time period, sort of. complexity around CTV. One of the things that, and to champion what Matt was saying earlier, one of the great things about the Olympics is it is one of those sporting events that goes over the course of weeks, not just a single event, right? So we have the Super Bowl that will do that. A number of our CTV partners have leaned into that. But then later in the year, we're also going to have the World Cup and on Telemundo. So the Hispanic audience looking for that CTV connection point, they're going to have multiple weeks to follow the World Cup. And for an advertiser who wants to get in, then you'll find, hey, I can see how my spot performs in CTV over time.
And that's a big year for NBC. Goodness gracious. Oof.
Yeah, huge year.
I want to add for sports too, when you're buying in the CTV space, you can fix your budget. So that Sunday night football game, you can say, I want to spend $50,000, lock in your CPM. You don't need to spend $500,000 to get into that linear spot anymore. You can still be a part of the moment, but not the whole moment.
Good point. Good point. Well, what a wonderful question and answer session, guys. Thank you so much. And what a phenomenal session overall. Chris, Racine, Sean, Matt, great conversation today. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your insight and sharing your industry knowledge with all of us today. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. Before we close out, I'd like to take a moment to invite each and every one of you to join us for the next episode of the PDMI Take 20, hosted Wednesday, February 18th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Also, if you're dreaming of warmer weather, and I know many of you guys are, I'd like to remind you that PDMI, our spring conference, is scheduled for April 13th through 15th in Miami at the beautiful Eden Rock Hotel located on the beach. How good does the beach sound right now, right? Nothing beats a little vitamin D from the sun and your sands in the toes, your toes in the sand, and maybe a mojito in hand. So think PDMI, folks. To get your badge, please visit our website, thepdmi.com. That's thepdmi.com. And finally, class is in session. I'd like to encourage each and every one of you to check out the PDMI University with 10 powerful courses. This online, on-demand program is designed to help elevate your game. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. Thanks again to our speakers and our moderator. Have a great day, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.